Hello, I am Brittany Siordia, and I have Mr. Kevin Pillow here with me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brittany. How are you?
Awesome, I'm doing well. So I have a few questions for you, if that's all right. Just.
Yeah, it's finally someone. It's finally time for someone to interview me. I mean, so
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we'll start off with an easy one. As a radio host, you've been on with some pretty unique characters on your show. Are there any shows that come to mind that there were people with just a little colorful, extra colorful kick to the show?
two that jump out to me was a couple of girl golfers that I interviewed back in February that were from La Quinta High School out at the Humana Challenge. I don't know. You might know one or two of them. Uh,
Maybe.
but no, no, Brittany, you and Caitlin were great interviews. Um, Ones that jump out to me, I think that are always colorful are the water polo players. Water polo players are so much fun to talk to. They don't get enough attention, so they really enjoy being there. They really enjoy the attention that they get. The Xavier Prep water polo team the last couple of years has been very, very good. They were always a lot of fun to talk to. And then actually, the ones that jump out to me was the guys from the flag game last year from La Quinta High
Okay.
School. Charles Hayes, Chris Rom Toribio. Those guys were a lot of fun. I was talking to Charles Hayes' parents last night, and for a guy that was really shy and it was a hard time to get him to come out of his shell, was a great interview last year and really entertaining young man. And yeah, I think those guys, any of the water polo guys that come in, and no disrespect to the girls,
Hmm.
but the water polo guys that come in are a lot of fun, and also the La Quinta football players that came in last year were a lot of fun.
Okay, fair enough. What do you think the hardest question you've had to ask? What do you think is the hardest question you've had to ask somebody on the air?
The hardest question I've had, that is a great question. Um, oh goodness gracious. Uh, it's actually that is a really tough question to ask because everyone's been able to answer all the questions that I've asked them. How they balance their schoolwork is always a tough one because they have an answer, but it takes them a while to answer it because it's such a tough thing to do. To be
Absolutely.
a standout athlete and then to be a standout student athlete. So it's when they break down the time they spend hitting the books as well as hitting the weight room or hitting the gym or hitting the playing field or the playing surface that they compete on. That was always a tough question for student athletes to answer because it's such a tough thing to do.
Absolutely. Now, this one's more geared to you. Have you made any comments that you just wanted to bite your tongue?
I've had some cringeworthy moments where I'm like, I should have taken that question back. I pride myself on not being a controversial host.
Okay.
I don't want to ask. I'll ask tough questions, but I'm not going to ask the uncomfortable questions.
Yes.
One of the toughest things to do was interviewing Dan Armstrong 2 years ago. He didn't speak to the media for years. Don't need to get into why he didn't, but he didn't. It was his choice. He chose not to speak to anybody in the media. I was one of the first people he talked to at length about anything. He came on the show in the summer of 2013. He's been a fantastic guest ever since, and I look forward to many more interviews with Coach Armstrong. I think he's a very nice gentleman. He knows the sports world. He knows football, and he's actually surprisingly very funny. I don't think there was any cringeworthy moments where I was like I had to bite my tongue with a question, but with I think interviewing Dan Armstrong for the first time was uncomfortable, and then I think with his personality, he made me at ease, and it's been a fantastic interview since.
Awesome, awesome. That kind of leads into my next question. You seem to know like all the controversies and all the drama. Like, how do you stay so updated on everything that's going on?
Twitter is
All right, social
Twitter,
media.
social media, and in contacts with the athletes. Um, I broke down a lot of barriers that when I started doing the show in 2012, the way to interview a student, for me to have interviewed you, I would have had to gone through the school district, then through an AD, through a principal, and actually the last person I would have talked to would have been you or your parents. But that's not how you can't run a successful show that way. So a lot of people in the media wanted to contact coaches and contact parents. I went right to the source. I went through to interview you. I'll use it as an example. I eventually, first I went through Dan Armstrong, got your golf coach's phone number. I called your golf coach. I got Caitlin Ellis on the show, and then eventually through Caitlin, I got you on the show. So that's kind of the way we went. Nowadays, I'll go and I'll look at stats and I'll look who's big in the sports world, and I'll go on social media and I'll find you on Twitter, or I'll find whoever on Twitter and say, hey, do you want to be on the radio? And I go that way, and really no one's had a problem with it. Matter of fact, coaches, athletic directors, and players have loved that way because it's easy access to the media. They get information out there about themselves and about their program, and I think it's been a lot easier. I've got probably a Rolodex of phone numbers that is more players than coaches, just simply because it's easier to get a hold of them than it is the coaches, because they're always on their phones.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you said that you did this, you started in 2012. How long do you plan on remaining as the voice behind your show?
As long as Team 1010, KXPS, CRC Media West will have me. Ron Cohen, the owner of CRC Media West, has been a gracious owner and boss. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of money put behind Team 1010. Behind Prep Sports Weekly, but Team 1010, whether it was Brian Jewett from 2012 to 2013, or Jeffrey O'Brien from 2013 to 2015, they believe in the value of high school sports.
Absolutely.
And they said, win or lose, we're going to put Prep Sports on the air, and as long as they'll still have me, I'd love to do this. I want to be in radio. I'll take whatever job I can get in media, but I love doing radio. It's a lot of I think it's a lot more fun than print and television. But I'll keep doing it till they won't have me anymore, and then I'll go find somewhere else to do it. But no, it's a lot of fun, and I continue. I'll just keep doing it till whenever.
Totally. Do you feel like Prep Sports Weekly has created a new platform of entertainment by showcasing the Desert's, best student athletes, or do you feel like there was an appreciation before, before your show?
There has been successes, and there has been failures in covering high school sports in the Coachella Valley. We just did a show with two of the writers from the Desert Sun, and they have been the most consistent voice of high school sports for years. I mean, dating back to probably when the Desert Sun first was created. But I pride myself in that. It could be coincidence. It could be the Kevin Pillow factor. But since September of 2012, it has been blatantly obvious that a larger presence of coverage in the media in the Coachella Valley has been focused on high school sports, whether it be Angelo over at KSQ, whether it be our former colleague Julie Bueller now at KMIR, whether it be Andrew John, Shad Powers, Nathan Brown, or all the guys at the Desert Sun. It's been blatantly obvious that there's been a large presence of high school coverage in the media since 2012. Conveniently enough, that's when Prep Sports League was born, was in September of 2012.
There we go. Now, another personal question for you. What has been the hardest thing about maintaining a work life, social life, family life, and your radio show?
Something has to give. I had a job where my boss told me that there are three things to make a successful business: customer service, quality of the product, and price of the product. And something's got to give. You can't have all three. And with working in the media, you have a social life, a family life, and a work life. And I now have to juggle two jobs: this and my day-to-day job. So I have to juggle four things. Something has to give. I will put family first, but I have to consider that I want to work in the media. So part of putting my family first is being a successful journalist so I can better myself and make more money. But my social life has taken probably a step backwards. However, I have met so many really interesting people that have allowed my radio work life and my social life to blend together. Ron Shipley, the head football coach at Shadow Hills, I've known for many years. He's a family friend. Matter of fact, he was at my mom's 50th birthday party a few years back. He's been a part of he's definitely been in our inner circle with my family. Obviously, my connection with Shadow Hills, I've dealt with him. You and I have become very good friends. Caitlin Ellis and I have become very good friends over the last couple of years, and I'm very proud to see the two of you go on and do bigger and better things in college. But you meet interesting people in doing this, and you kind of it almost becomes your work family, which becomes your social circle. Philip Katofmo, who you can't see, he's behind the scenes. He started off as a scoreboard operator at Shadow Hills softball. He showed an interest in radio, became my intern, became an unpaid co-host, and now I consider him a friend, and so I get to hang out with a friend at work. So social life and the media business kind of blend together because you have this little crew. I think one of my favorite moments was we were at a Palm Springs basketball game about 2 years ago, and Bill Byron, who was working for the Desert Sun at the time, and Greg Lee were at the game, and there was a picture that Patty Myers took of the three of us and said, it's the media family. It was radio, television, and print. And so you meet friends like that. So to balance, sometimes it has to blend together, but at the same time, sometimes it has to sacrifice.
Absolutely, absolutely. What would you like to see come out of your show? Like, how do you want to see it grow? What are your goals?
More of this, video. I want to see a more video aspect. The radio business is going towards a live streaming. It's getting to see behind the scenes. We did some stuff with Ustream. We might bring it back during the fall and the spring. We'll have to wait and see. We want to get some money put into it, put some production value into it instead of just being a single camera operation. But with Periscope, doing commercial breaks live on Periscope is something we want to add. What I'd like to see this show evolve to, I want to see more national coverage. We broke a lot of national stories on Prep Sports Weekly over the last 2 or 3 years. We talked about, there was a volleyball player that was kicked off the team I think it was like in Connecticut a couple of years ago. We talked about that story. We talked about the player with autism that had his Letterman taken away, and I think it was like in Ohio somewhere. So I'd like to do more national stories. I'm going to be actually going up to Mammoth Mountain in October, which means I will be missing my show. We did a show last year. Phil basically kind of hosted it, and I co-hosted it from my cabin in Mammoth. I want to cover more sports like that. It's Mammoth High School is in the CI Southern section. I'd like to interview the coach from Mammoth High School and talk about playing at the elevation, that league and stuff like that. So part of it is expanding the brand, doing stuff outside the Coachella Valley, at the same time also expanding how using technology and expanding the brand. So adding stuff like Ustream, Periscope, and other social media aspects from a video standpoint, and also talking about more than just the Coachella Valley and the CIF Southern section.
Absolutely. And then another question to you more personally. Do you feel working with student athletes has helped you rekindle memories of your high school days? And is it possible that you're kind of like living vicariously through the students whom you're interviewing?
Absolutely, 100%. I do, and one of the critiques I had in the early going was I use the word me or I a lot in my interviews, and a lot of it has to do is I was in their shoes. I played football, I played basketball, I ran track, I played golf, so I know what they go through, and a lot of it, especially when I have teams like Desert Chapel, Desert Christian in Palm Valley, and they play 8-man football. I played 8-man football. It doesn't get a lot of respect, and I do. Part of me is It rekindles the past memories. I've had a chance to interview people that I played with. Tom Fulton, who's an assistant coach at Desert Christian. I played football with him my junior and senior year. Actually, my sophomore year as well. But so I've interviewed him, and we've rekindled and talked about stuff. I went to high school with Christy Young, who was the volleyball coach at Desert Christian as well. So that kind of rekindled some past memories of volleyball games that I used to go to. Do I live vicariously through them? To an extent. I think that if there's anybody that I've quote unquote lived by, if I can, I use the term loosely,
Yeah, absolutely.
is the golfers. Yourself, Caitlin, Mackenzie Rame, Ji Yoon, Malia, the golfer, Casey Scott on the boys' side, Ketek, goodness gracious, all the golfers, because I think that was my main sport. I was a 3-year letter winner in high school in golf, and I still enjoy playing the game, as frustrating as it is and as how terrible my swing is. I love going out to the golf tournaments and watching people play and comparing notes. You and I got to hang out at the Humana, the Jenkins Memorial. So if there's any athlete I live vicariously through is the golfers, because I always want to put together a dream team and go win some weekend tournament and win with a bunch of ringers. So no, but to answer your question, yes and no, I live vicariously through the student athletes.
So, would you change anything about your high school career because of the students you've met on your show?
If I had the technology that they have today in the 90s, yeah, I would change things. I would study film more. Things like Huddle are huge. Max Preps did not come around until the early 2000s. When I coached in 2006, I had vague memories of what Max Preps was. Matter of fact, I was first exposed to maxpreps.com when I was starting my play-by-play career in 2004, when I was covering the Freeway League in Orange County. And even then, Max Preps was in its very infant stages of a website. It's not nearly the conglomerate it is today. But if I had stuff like Huddle, when I played football in high school, that would have been a huge. Just spending more time practicing, watching things like Hard Knocks on HBO and seeing what guys like J.J. Watt do, even at the pro level. Now you can only imagine what he did at the high school level. Just spending more time on the field and seeing these guys put in the extra work. Guys like Will O'Vara at Palm Springs, guys like Darius Halsey at Coachella Valley High School, seeing what Turbo did at La Quinta, just putting in the extra work, going to kinetics, going to 101 athletics, going to Gold's Gym and pumping iron, or just going to the field on a Saturday morning and running suicides or running 40s and staying in shape. I would have done that, would have played a lot more sports, and that's why I encourage athletes to be multi-sport athletes. You saw Turbo obviously was a track star and a football star. Guys like Orlando Wallace was a 3-way player, played football, played basketball, ran track, was amazing at all 3. I would have done more of that, and I promote more of that as well. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is Mr. Kevin Pillow. Thank you so much.